What's up, ADD fam? Back in the building. Back with Mr. Crazy, the craziest of all crazy bitches. Number one, crazy bitch. So today, fam, we're going to discuss some people that I used to ride with. I feel kind of good today, just for some reason. Nothing particular. Just sometimes you get in good moods. And so I just got off work and I got to thinking about some of the guys that I used to fuck with and rode with. One guy in particular, not all the guys that I fucked with were all druggies, but there were a few and far in between that I messed with and worked with that were characters in their own right, right? So let me tell you about the BGGP. Yes, that's right, the BGGP. So, in this, I'm going back in a time. This is when I was almost first married. I've been married about 2-3 years now, going on 3 years, right? When I first got married, I owned my own company. Well, actually, when we first got married, I was working for Anthony, and then I quit and I went and worked for myself for about 2 years, and then I went back to work for Anthony. So I'd only been married like 3 years during this time. As I discussed before, when I used to travel a lot. So on this occasion, as I discussed, this job in particular is the one that I touched on briefly, where we went to the last town in New Jersey, Vicksburg or somethingburg, New Jersey, right? We went up there to paint linens and things, right? And this was dead of winter, and it was snowing there. It was snowing while it was there. Our hotel was right across the street from the mall where we were working and painting at. But nevertheless, it was snowing outside. It was cold as fuck. It was miserable. So this is the job where the guy gets carbon monoxide poisoning and has to go to the hospital for a week, right? These average jobs were usually from 10 to 14 days, give or take, and how many people, who all was going. Some guys were a lot faster than others, etc. And so we painted a lot of these commercial buildings in these days. It paid good money, and it was steady work. So we go on this occasion, like I said, to North Carolina, New Jersey, and there's 5 of us, right? There's me, the BGGP, and this guy Brandon that I had known previously. He was this black guy Brandon B that I'm friends with. I had met him years before. We lived in these trailers. He lived in there. He was friends with my brother-in-law, my wife's brother. I met him. We used to kick it. And then we moved into the townhouse in Kennesaw. And lo and behold, by coincidence, he moves in it too. He's like 2 or 3 they're townhouses that are connected to one another. There was 3 in our unit, right? I was in the middle, and I had one on either side of me. And then there was another. He was the next unit over, so he was an actual neighbor of mine now. After we moved out of the trailer and we moved his townhouse, him and his mom lived there too. He was a few years younger than me. I had taken him and my brother-in-law to the strip club a few times. We were friends. So I got him a job with this painting out of town. So he was there with us on this shit show, this festival. So, like I say, there's 5 of us that go to New Jersey. He comes with the BGGP, who's this big ogre guy, right? We call him the big giant goofy painter, right? The BGGP, big giant goofy painter. And me and Brandon, I've always had a thing for, giving people nicknames and making fun of people and this kind of shit, right? I mean, I've been doing it my whole life since I was, very young, at a very young age this started. And so I was always labeling people and giving them, their own nicknames. I'm big on this. I've given everyone I'm ever known or been friends with a nickname. So I called him the BWGP, the big giant goofy painter. And we were all stuck in a room together in a hotel, right? Me, the double GP, and Brandon were all in a hotel together. And we're saying this behind his back. Oh, it's the BWGP, BGP, and calling him all this shit right behind his back. Well, he finally gets angry and upset. He never knows. We never tell him what it stands for. We're just calling him the BWGP, and he's getting angry and mad, and he knows we're making fun of him and laughing at him and shit, and he can't figure it out. So, right off the rip, we start out. We meet at Anthony's, and this guy, the BWGP, I can't even remember his name, but he was this big ogre guy, right, that wore glasses, big goofy looking dude, heavy set guy, probably 6'3", probably 250, not fat but not muscular, just big. And he had glasses and curly hair, and he was one of these, I don't have anything against church or nothing like that, but he was one of these Bible thumpers, right? I don't got anything against Jesus or nothing like that either. My wife's big into it, but he was one of this Jesus freak guys, right? So he brought the Bible and all that, and everyone telling their stories, and all his stories were about the church, right? Nothing bad about it, against it. I'm just telling you what it was. So the BWGP, his whole life is just his wife, his kid, and the church, right? And painting. And we meet at Anthony's, and we get in the truck, Big Red, the 2500 HD that I've talked about, and this guy's driving, and he gets in the truck. The Big Red is what we called her, the truck, right? I drove it for years. Big Red in that day was brand spanking new, right? Had like no miles at all on it. Big badass truck. And this big goofy fuck gets right in the he gets right in the driver's side. Well, if you don't know or do or don't know about painting and painters, I'm a carpenter, but I'd done just painting before at one time. Well, painters wear painter pants, and most people know, and they have this side pocket, right? And they put what they call 5-in-1 in that pocket. It's designed and made to hold a 5-in-1, right? This big goofy fuck gets in Anthony's truck, and he's got his 5-in-1 in his 5-in-1 pocket, and he cuts the seat. This brand new truck hasn't even been at. This is Big Red's first out of town job. This is how new the truck is, and he rips the seat, cuts the shit out of it, right? Big badass nice truck, and now it's right off the rip. We haven't even gotten out of our town, let alone the state yet, and he's already ripped a hole in the seat, which, forever from then on forward was always, the BWGP's fuck up. Because like I said, I drove that truck after that for over 10 years. And so we get up there, and if that wasn't bad enough, first thing he does, he fucks up Anthony's truck. He cuts the seat. We get up there. We're making fun of him. Then next thing we know, we lay out for a day. He goes in and gets carbon monoxide poisoning, winds up in the hospital. We wound up having to finish the job pretty much without him. He gets out of the hospital at the end of the job, and it's me, Brandon, him, and we're packed, right? We're 5 deep in Big Red to New Jersey from Atlanta, right? As far as fuck, okay? It's super far. 17, 20 hours. We're leaving. We're now finished the job, and we're about to head home. It's snowing outside. And this big goofy fuck gets a wild hair up his ass. He wants to go to Ground Zero. This is right when Ground Zero after Ground Zero had been blown apart, and the foundation was just being put back, right? This was the foundation of Ground Zero. So we all vote. Who's for Ground Zero? Who's for going home? I get outvoted. I vote to go home. I'm over it. There's me, Brandon, BGP, and 2 Mexicans. So we're deep in this thing, you know. I want to go the fuck home. We got a 20-hour drive as is, and we got 3 people in the back seat, and we're having to swap out who's going to drive, who gets passenger, and this big goofy fuck's driving. And so it was a miserable trip, right? So from where we were to Ground Zero was 2 hours. We went 2 hours in the opposite direction of home to go to Ground Zero. But we went and did that, and so I kind of, you know, overlooked it, and was, part of me was glad that we had did it. So we get to Ground Zero, and it's snowing outside, and it's like, you know, almost zero. It's freezing, absolute freezing cold outside, and I don't want to get out of the truck, but I do. And I'm, even with a thick jacket, if you haven't been to New York winters are maddening, right? We're talking a few degrees, if not 0 or below 0. Cold, super duper cold. We all split up. We decided to meet at this certain place, and we're going to meet back in the truck in 2 or 4 hours, right? So we go do that. We're sightseeing. I get this little figurine, which I wound up losing anyhow. But I used to have this little figurine. It was a little miniature, Ground Zero, 9/11 building. And so I had that for many, many years until I went to Joe Speck with my kids. But anyways, so now we've met up at our spot, right? And we meet up, and right at Ground Zero, there's a building that you can go in. And this is right across the street from my uncle that's a lawyer that I speak of. His office building was right across the street from Ground Zero. He was actually one of the people that was trampled in the chaos. He was actually one of the people that got trampled by a crowd of people and got his glasses broke and got a tangent in his eye and had to have surgery, eye surgery from being in the mix of that. The dust and debris got in his eyes. People trampled on him, and so like I said, that happened. But so we're down right there, Ground Zero, and lo and behold, here's the GBBP. If he's not just one of these, how could I even put him into proper terminology? Like Urkel, okay, is like the best definition I can give you, right? Like Where's Waldo, like Pee Wee Herman, like the biggest dork you could imagine. And this guy's over here, and he's put his arms around one of these cops that's got, there's cops there, and they got machine guns. Not handguns, there's cops holding machine guns. And this stupid, goofy fuck goes over to one of them and puts his arm around him to get a picture. And the guy turns around and he almost blasts him. The guy's, I don't know if I could do it while I'm driving, but imagine a cop with a machine gun in his hand. He's got both his hands on the machine gun, and then this goofy fuck puts his arm around him for a picture. The cop jerks back and aims the gun at him and tells him, whoa, bad idea, dude, bad idea. He almost got blown away for being a stupid fuck. So he winds up getting a picture with the cop. But the cop's got an eat shit look on his face. But he winds up doing a picture with him. The cop tells him, almost blew you away. Stupid fuck. This dumbass put his arm around this cop. The tension was already high. Tension was in the air to begin with. And this guy didn't have enough brains. Didn't have no brains to change a light bulb. Let alone paint a store. So this is one, like I said, of a gazillion stories of type of outlandish and out there kind of shit that I dealt with on the regular. These are your average stories, right? There was always, once again, a lot of something similar there, right? There was always like a goof clown, a Mexican. That there was always this Mexican guy, Adrian, who thought he was tough. He worked out, and he was always flexing his muscles. And he wound up not being shit. I wound up getting a wrestling match and body slamming him on a job at Georgia Tech. For years, this guy picked on me, right? This Mexican, Adrian. He would start shit with me. And him, and this guy Jose used to wrestle, right? They'd fuck with me, and we'd get to wrestling right on the job. So after years and years of this, we're on a job at Georgia. We're painting Georgia Tech, and he tries that shit, and I body slam him. And there was another one of these. If you'd have asked me, and I would have told you a million times over that I would have never thought I'd been able to do it. Once again, I did it. I body slammed this Mexican. He was just a hair taller than me, but he had a little more meat on his bones, right? So if you sized us up, you would think he would have stomped me. And like I said, we used to wrestle all the time, but it was always me against two Mexicans, a hair bigger than me. So I used to get tired of that shit. And one day I went to swinging on him. So Adrian was with us on that. He was there on the show, and he was bisexual, if not straight gay. And he used to do this thing with his eyebrows. He was doing his eyebrows to the BWGP, the whole drive to Vegas and back. And I had seen him do that to a few people, like a couple of guys that maybe it looked like he had a crush on him. Some sick shit, you know. But it was another part of the shit show. And I was around a lot of, like I mentioned, I was around a lot of these Mexicans. We used to pick them up. We used to drop them off. Like I said, we'd meet in Gwinnett and carpool. And I was all the time going there, picking them up, dropping them off, etc. And most of them were bisexual. A lot of them. I don't know about most of them, but there was three in particular that was always around. Jose, Adrian, and there was another guy. I don't remember the other guys. Fabi. And this guy Fabi. And they was all questionable. I knew they was all bisexual at least. This other job we did, and Anthony, if I hadn't told you, is bisexual too. Anthony's a fruitcake. Anthony and these Mexicans we'd go on the road, and they'd be walking around their hotel room in their skibbies, in their tidy whities. If it's bad enough, none of them wore boxers like a normal person does. Anthony and these Mexicans all wore, like, you know, the type of underwear you wore when you were a kid, you know what I'm saying? Tiny, tidy whitey skibbies. And that shit used to gross me out. Anthony would be walking around in his tidy whities. Sometimes a sick fuck would walk around naked in the room. And he, like I said, he was nasty. And these Mexicans were too. We were out of town working one time, and I walk in their room, and they're sitting on the bed in their skibbies looking at the same dirty magazine. And I'm like totally grossed out, right? These two Mexicans are in their underwear, in the bed together, tidy whities at that, not boxers. They're in their tidy whities in the same bed looking at the same dirty magazine. All that shit used to gross me out. So I couldn't help it if I, you know, had a bad taste for traveling with these guys, right? And Anthony too. Anthony, like I said, was a sicko in his own right, walking around in his underwear naked in the room in front of other guys. Just a fucking weird dude, right? All around just a weirdo. And like I said, Anthony was bi. He has this guy Johnny that he was best friends with, and Johnny was another very wealthy guy, a friend of his best friend, lived in an upscale neighborhood, what they call Town Lake, outside of Atlanta. And Johnny is a computer salesman and has always had big money. So Johnny is Anthony's best friend, and they would do a lot of shit together. We'd be out of town, we'd be in Miami working. Johnny would come down, meet Anthony in the hotel, and him and Anthony were going scuba diving, this kind of shit. They were big into scuba diving. They were also big into laying pipe. You could definitely tell that they had a thing with each other. They were always around. Anthony's wife would get mad about all this, right? Anthony's wife used to go to John's house. Anthony'd be over at John's house, you know, for the weekend or the night, whatever, and he would spend a lot of time over there drinking and doing cocaine, and I'm sure doing boo-fooing. And Anthony's wife was a raging alcoholic, and she used to go over there and go over to Johnny's house and sit in his driveway and play her music as loud as he possibly can, honking the horn, screaming, yelling, driving like a fucking maniac. Anthony's wife was all that, right? Shout out to Donna. Just one of these nutty, just another nutso, right? But I had nothing but love for her, you know, and the shit she had to putting up with this dickhead in this shit bag, you know. And so, but they were a show on their own, all of them. So Donna's always over at Johnny's house making a scene, get police called over there, all kind of shit shows going on. And this was the norm. And Johnny was always around in these days. And we spent a lot of time together. One time we left a job where Deezy was on. We left Deezy and Tony on. We left Deezy and Tony on a job. Me and Anthony leave the job at like midnight, drive several hours home, get to Johnny's in the middle of the night, and Anthony's got an ounce of cocaine in his pocket, and I don't even know. He's held out on me this whole night now, right? We get to Johnny's at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and now he tells me he's got cocaine. We start doing cocaine 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and wake Johnny up and start doing with him too. And we did it all the way through the next day. This was like Anthony's lifestyle, right? Like I said, he was a rare breed. It was hard to for people to deal with him, work for him. People's wives were always getting bent out of shape, mine included. And Anthony was always hitting on my wife. He was just that kind of perv. He was a perv, and made for a lot of uncomfortable times and situations. And there were several times I would, like one time, for instance, we're out of town, and we used to work to where we'd get off sometimes late at night. I get out of the shower, it's like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm about to lay down and go to bed, and Anthony shows up at my hotel with this other guy, and this other guy's, he's telling me he's an arms dealer, and Anthony and this arms dealer had been down in the hotel bar drinking all night, got drunk together. Now they're hanging out, just the two of them at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So like I said, Anthony was this kind of fruit, so cheat on his wife with men and women. So he was a strange bird. These were strange times. This was the norm for this day and time. I hope it's entertained you. This is the ADD man, the crazy one. Stay ADD. Ha ha!